In this Joint Multinational Readiness Center Train to Win podcast, I am your host, Lieutenant Colonel Elliot Harris, the Senior Fire Support Trainer here at JMRC. And today with me I have Major Jason Turner, Major Matthew Jensen, and Major Josh Zaruba, observer, coach, trainers for the JMRC Fire Support Team. Each of these field artillery leaders have served as S3s and executive officers at the Field Artillery Battalion, Division Artillery, and Field Artillery Brigade level, as well as experience as a brigade level fire support officer. Welcome, gentlemen, and I look forward to the discussion today about how to enable success as a field artillery major at the battalion and brigade level. Major Turner, one of the things that we spend a lot of time here talking about is, the success of a fire support officer, managing and helping that FISC cord enable the brigade fire support enterprise. Could you talk through your experiences over the last year and your observations as Mustang 27 and, what really constitutes success for that brigade fire support officer?
So for a brigade fire support officer, really setting conditions for success to enable the FISC cord and the brigade commander is your number one priority. Before you come into the job, you must continue to strive to be the master of your craft as a fire supporter. So what does this mean for the brigade FSO? You must be able to build a team that can stay focused on the brigade's fires fight, which includes all war fighting functions within the brigade. Your brigade fire support element must be able to conduct your current operations, planning, or targeting, whether at the main command post, with all your systems up and running, or even hasty over a Humvee hood. Now, you have to have a solid understanding of doctrine that helps you guide your warfighting before you're in the job. Our doctrine serves as the basis, really the starting point for when we develop our plans of how we're going to fight. So studying your doctrine before you get in the job gives you time to reflect on what it tells us and how we tailor principles of doctrine to our unique fights. Really, the 7 main manuals that I personally studied before taking the brigade FSO job helped me step into that job on day one, because I took the job right out of ILE and integrate into a staff ready to participate and enable my FISC cord. There were really those 7 manuals, FM30, the ops process, really getting a solid understanding of MDMP, FM3-90-1, the offensive defense, FM3-09 and 09.8, your fire support and field artillery operations, ATP 3-60, targeting, massively important, FM 3-55, information collection, and lastly, ATP 2-01.3 IPB, and of course the FM 7-100 series, which is your threat or your enemy tactics. Those were the main manuals that I studied before getting into the job, and they gave me a solid understanding of what my FISC cord was going to expect of me, and how I helped him and the brigade commander visualize and actually implement their fires. Secondly, building a team that understands a clear purpose, and that is the fires chain, really from the CAV troop or FO serving as your sensor on the ground, all the way to the cannoneer pulling the lanyard on your howitzer. The whole team has to understand where they fit in the fires chain. If they do, and they follow really clear standard operating procedures for your unit, ultimately they'll be successful. So for me, there were really 3 SOPs that we developed that enabled us to be effective and provide timely and accurate fires. First one was a digital SOP. Our second one was a brigade fire support element SOP, which really covered all our battle drills and counterfire, our fires battle rhythm, our fighting products, and probably the most helpful was an FSCM and ACM SOP that let us manage our database properly. And lastly was our digital sustainment training SOP. As a brigade FSO, I owned DST for the FA battalion in the brigade for all the sensor to shooter elements, to include the mortar teams. We focused every week on occupations, establishing capability, processing fire missions, and displacing, and just doing that repetition of those tasks repeatedly, working out the bugs, going through our processes, and finding efficiencies to chase that, chasing every mill, every meter, every second to provide timely fires. We routinely got about 50% of the team on the field every week. But over a period of time of about 3 months, we had gotten enough repetitions as a team that we were able to get past the systems and start focusing on the tactics of warfighting, so that we really could give our brigade commander the fires that he'd asked us for. And that really enabled the Fist Corps to be where he needed to be, either at the FA battalion or at the brigade headquarters, wherever that Fist Corps needed to best mentor whatever staff he was supporting. Going into this job, I felt that I had set myself up for success, but I think more importantly, the Fist Corps and the brigade commander supported me in understanding what the priority was across the brigade for the fires enterprise to work. And I think if you look at the previous rotations over the year, most of the trends where we see the brigade fire support element struggling falls into some of the topics that I covered here. When it comes to being able to provide timely and accurate fires, AFATAD's database management, routine fires battle rhythms, and rehearsals of the fire mission processing chain. I think those are kind of the three big trends that we see here that are impacting timely and accurate fires across the brigade.
All right, Josh, JT talked about targeting. How can you, as the brigade FSO, based off your experiences and your observations, how can you enable that targeting process to be successful?
Yeah, so as a brigade FSO, not only do you need to be an expert within your field, which JT already covered, however, you need to get with the brigade staff and understand that they have an understanding of their role within the targeting process. First off, you need to get with the brigade XO and the brigade S3 so you have their buy-in and you understand that you have a shared understanding of what targeting looks like within the brigade combat team. And then you need to get the sets and reps with the brigade staff with targeting teaches so that they understand their inputs and outputs, so that they can come prepared within targeting working groups and targeting meetings, so that we can ensure that we're meeting the commander's intent when it comes to targeting. The problem that we're seeing right now within GMRC is that not just from a fires warfighting function, but from all warfighting functions, they don't have the sets and reps when it comes to targeting. We're seeing that within their PMEs, they're not getting to the depth that's needed within targeting. They just kind of gloss over it, but not getting to the depth that's needed to ensure that they come prepared for a CTC rotation.
So, Major Jensen, one of the things that Major Turner talked about was our challenges with our AFATAD's database management and also our digital connectivity. Can you elaborate on what you've seen for successful best practices for building proficiency within those two areas to enable a responsive fires chain?
Yes, sir. So I think what's crucial is at home station, the digital sustainment training really has to be robust and enforced on a regular basis. So I think it starts with the foundation of a digital SOP, outlines a template for a database, and that is routinely rehearsed and practiced by leaders and executors at echelon. But I think leader involvement is key to all this, making sure that this is done to standards. So the digital SOP is going to set kind of the baseline for what the database should be, and then that's practiced. And then once they roll into a CTC, I think while they're developing MDMP by going through mission analysis and COA dev, there are certain inputs and outputs that are provided to the AFATAD's database to include guidances, target decay time, things of this nature. So I think if we're doing this properly, if we're doing DST at home station and translating that into CTC, I think once we go through MDMP, we have our database established, it's distributed, and digital connectivity works so much better, and there are very few hiccups with regards to the FATAS database while we're executing operations.
So, JT, if you had one bit of advice for a new or future fire support officer at the battalion, at the brigade level, what would it be?
I would say study doctrine, study tactics, study our fires doctrine, and study targeting. You will be the person who, at the front of the brigade staff, will be leading the targeting effort, supported by the FISC Corps, and understanding how every staff member contributes with inputs and outputs, like Major Zaruba mentioned, and how to efficiently include all the warfighting functions into your targeting process.
Okay, so let's transition from the brigade FSO position to really the Field Artillery Battalion. And as we look at that, Matt, what are the successes or challenges that S3s and XOs face, and what do they need to focus on to enable the success of their formation?
Yes, sir. So I think the first one that comes to mind, sir, is ammo management at echelon. Making sure the battalion has an accurate snapshot of what ammunition is on hand, what's on the guns, and what they need to move in the next phase. So it's not hard to plan that 24 or 48 hours out, but when we're talking days out, 96 hours out, that's where the battalion really needs to be focusing their efforts on what do we need to help the batteries to provide them ammunition management wise for the next fight. And the next piece of that, I say, is the digital sustainment, digital fire direction capability at the battalion level. So I think, again, leaders, field grades at echelon need to be involved in ensuring that we are maintaining digital FDC comms and enforcing those to ensure proper mission routing and relatively good times when it comes to fire direction mission processing times.
So, Josh, just to expand upon what Matt just talked about, so we want to see our S3s and XOs in the Field Artillery Battalion be successful in a rotation, but we also want to see them be successful in their job, in the Army. So, could you expand upon your thoughts with respect to how you do that?
Yes, sir. So, one thing that I realized going in and my first month on the job as a battalion S3 was I'm now a organizational leader, and with that, I have individuals, young leaders, lieutenants, NCOs, and soldiers that are looking up to me to make those hard decisions, and with that, you got to fulfill that responsibility, and you got to be able to train a staff, young staff, to be able to be meeting the. Can we cut that? I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Okay, training young staff. Just start with training young staff.
Okay. With training a young staff to ensure that they know their roles and responsibilities within their warfighting function, how they can enable not only the commander but the entire battalion at the battalion level and also down at the battery and section level. Additionally, one of the things that I focused on was the training management piece. When I came into the seat, I had a year until my NTC rotation. So basically I had 12 months to be able to plan and train the FA battalion for their culminating event as far as their National Training Center rotation. With that, I just focused on the basics. We took the lessons learned from previous units that went through a CTC rotation, and we worked on those throughout those 12 months so that we could become proficient within the basics, and that deemed us, it was very helpful for us to be able to just be able to communicate. We were able to shoot, and we were able to move efficiently and effectively, and we had a very successful rotation.
Matt, earlier you talked about really as at the S3 and XO level within the Field Artillery Battalion, the importance of ammunition management. And during our last podcast, we spent a lot of time talking about ammunition management. But interested in your thoughts of how the S3 and XO enable that and what they need to focus on with respect to ammunition management?
Yes, sir. So I think what's crucial to ammunition management is knowing what the FA battalion obviously needs, at least 96 hours out, and then what is your ability to haul that ammunition around the battlefield and get it to where it needs to be. And there's numerous other players that have to come into this. Obviously, the Forward Support Company, the BSB, representatives, the S4 at Brigade, have a piece to play in this as well. But at the FA battalion level, I think it's absolutely crucial that the right person is put as the battalion ammunition officer to track that ammunition and really alleviate that responsibility from the fire direction officer. And I'll pass it over to Major Turner for any amplifying comments.
Yeah, so when you look at where the genesis of the demand signal starts, it really starts within the brigade's targeting process. As we look at the enemy that we want to affect, we start to put down that battlefield calculus for the number and type of munitions that we need to expend to achieve a desired effect. When we do that, we start to put together our target list worksheet, which really helps us see the quantity and the types of ammo that we're going to need to meet the commander's intent. One of the best practices that we've seen is when the brigade FSO and the targeting officer develop these fire support products during the targeting process out to 96 hours, we start to see more predictability when it comes to aligning resources in time and space. Specifically for ammo, as a brigade FSO, I interacted with my battalion S3 and XO 4 or 5 times a day as we were doing in the MDMP process or the targeting process. As we were developing these draft fire support products, we would pass that on to the FA battalion field grades, and they were able to help me, one, stay within the realm of possible of what they actually could or could not haul, and two, they helped me plan a fire support plan that was executable. Understanding there's some flexibility in our plan because the enemy might go left instead of right, we were able to, in that depth of time, determine how much ammo we needed to affect the enemy and have it at the right place at the right time based off our predictive analysis of what the enemy scheme of maneuver was, which enabled the FA battalion to efficiently prepare ammunition stores if it were at the ATHP or if it were at the CTCP or on the guns themselves. That communication between the brigade FSO and the battalion S3 and XO really enabled ammunition management to be an efficient process with respect to forecasting and having the conditions set to have a deliberate fight against the enemy, but also be dynamic if the enemy decides to change his scheme of maneuver at the last second.
So before we transition here, I'm interested in what is the most important attribute that a S3 or an XO needs to possess within the Field Artillery Battalion?
Sir, I think the ability to achieve the commander's intent, the results that we need to achieve to affect the enemy when and how the commander and fifth corps tell us to affect the enemy, that is, I think, what's most important when you look at any of these field grade positions. But the FA battalion specifically, if your fires chain from the FA battalion up to the brigade FSC enables timely and accurate fires, as an FA battalion S3 or XO, I think you're achieving and you're meeting the commander's intent.
Okay, as we look at really the transition from the battalion level to the brigade level, each of you have been successful either DIVARTY or also Field Artillery Brigade field grades. And so, as we talk about what enables success there and how you make that transition from the Field Artillery Battalion to a brigade level position, whether it's a DCO position, XO, or an S3 position, talk to me about the significance of that transition and what you have to do to be successful there.
So from a DIVARTY S3 perspective, I think you still got to keep your ear to the ground with the FA battalion about how they're integrating into the brigade fight, because much of their training, their certification, their qualification for tables is dependent on what the DIVARTY commander says in the Red Book. So I think it starts with developing a digital SOP, which Major Turner referenced earlier, and I think it's amplified in the red book that DeVarty produces and enforces as a metric for qualification and certification. And conversely, I think working with the division staff is something unique at the DeVarty level. You really got to figure out where the Force Field Artillery Headquarters kind of fits into the division fight, and know your division counterparts, and there's a lot more of them in order to get the job done. You also have to be that voice to really take, during MDMP, to artillerize the IPB portion and make sure we are targeting the HPTL that Division Commander has identified.
I think I'd add in also, as you go into either the S3 or the XO role at the brigade level, you need to understand not only your warfighting function, but each of the other warfighting functions and how they feed into your staff. At times, from my experience, just because you have an S1, S2, S6, you want to say that they understand their warfighting function, but a lot of times they may not be digging into the doctrine and understanding what their role is within a DeVarty or within a field artillery brigade. So if you, as the organizational leader, as either the X3 or XO, you need to dive into their doctrine and understand what they can bring to the table so that you can hold your staff accountable so that they can be highly effective and produce the desired results for your brigade commander.
I think to add on to that, when you look at the brigade level field grade job, you're really looking at a different level of organization and a different level of attention. I know as a brigade or a DeVarty S3, I paid attention to laterally. I had to build a really good team within the unit because it's all a bunch of majors, but you are the senior, either the 3 or the XO in the brigade. While you are equal in rank, there is a hierarchy, and you are the senior field grade within that organization between the S3 and the XO. So understanding that building that team in a positive work environment where everyone contributes, everyone pulls their weight, but you're at the helm of that team, I thought was really important. I also think at that level, that's really, for me, the opportunity where I started to pay attention to national defense strategy, force comm, commander readiness guidance, corps division readiness guidance, and start to pull, the messaging and the information and the guidance that our senior leaders are putting out down to my level of understanding, and then being able to articulate what we're doing to enable readiness within my higher headquarters, translate that to my brigade commander or my DeVarty commander so that he can inform his leadership of what we're doing to enable them to meet, national defense strategy level readiness. We read this book that's on the Commandant's reading list leading up, and it's about being able to help, your commander as well as yourself articulate clearly and succinctly what you're doing in your day-to-day and how it's building readiness for the unit itself. So I think at the DeVarty level, that was the first time I really started to understand where this unit fits in the grand scheme of national deterrence, and understanding that the lowest level private's job can have an impact on strategic level strategy.
So JT, there's a lot of good points there. One thing I just want to highlight from my perspective was basically a hole in my swing going up to brigade level. So as the 210 Field Artillery Brigade XO, there's a hole in my swing as far as understanding logistics and the budget within the brigade. But I had to basically tie into the subject matter experts at the division level and even down at the brigade level and trust the subordinates that we had within the brigade to do their job while they were teaching me, and I was also under the microscope from the DCGS at 2ID. So he ensured that I did understand what I was doing and that I knew what I was supposed to do to enable my boss within regards to the budget. Additional thing that I learned a lot, I didn't know a lot going in, was USR. I think it's imperative not only for brigade and battalion XOs, but brigade and battalion S3s. They need to understand their role within the USR and what that means for their commander. And also, as they move in to become future commanders themselves, they need to understand the USR process and how the stuff that they're putting on, how that reflects on not only your organization, but your hires organization, because those are comments that are going all the way up to HQDA. So you just need to understand that role and the entire process to enable your commander.
At each level that we've talked about today, gentlemen, one of the things that's either been referenced directly or indirectly is teamwork. How do we reinforce teamwork at echelon, and what can we do to better enable teamwork across each of these respective formations?
Yeah, so sir, I think it's crucial as a field grade officer at the battalion level, at the brigade level, it doesn't matter, to be nested and on the same page as your counterpart. So the XO and the S3 have to be pursuing the boss's guidance in the same direction with the same voice at all times. And I think that's imperative for the health of the organization. It's good for the subordinates to notice that. And it really just creates a better working environment for everyone, and really it's helping to achieve the commander's intent at the end of the day. But without that teamwork of those two individuals at the battalion level, and then by extension other field grades within the brigade, I think it's not bettering the organization. And I think ultimately it's something that we have to work on, both professionally and personally, to have that good relationship with their counterpart.
I'd also like to add in from a 210 Field Artillery Brigade perspective, we are a combined unit, so we actually have 10 Republic of Korea officers or ROC officers within our organization, and with that, we had to have teamwork with only them. We had to utilize them to be able to communicate to the ground component command, which is an organization that the 210 Field Artillery Brigade fell under as far as the counterfire task force. If we didn't, enable those individuals, our ROC counterparts within our organization, and develop that teamwork, we would not have been successful as we were.
And when you look here at the European theater, much like Korea, if we're going to enter into armed conflict here in the European theater, we're going to do it with our multinational partners. And so, the importance of teamwork, like you just talked about, Josh, I think is going to be evident in, how we train and how we prepare ourselves for that in any large-scale combat operations.
Just to add on to the teamwork, so I think one of the things that we routinely see talking with our peers and fellow field grades, really taking care of your soldiers, the civilians, and the family members that support those that serve is really the bedrock of creating a team that can work together. And then after you have a strong bedrock and they understand and they can trust you, you have a unified purpose for your team. And just having those interactions with your teammates, doing events with each other, even in this environment, having that connectedness between you and those that work with and for you really sets a team together, one with a unified purpose, who, when you provide direction, they understand why you're providing direction in a certain way. I think even in the multinational environment that we are in, things as simple as having a phone conversation with a partner or an ally, doing a Zoom call or a Teams call with people that you're going to work with or do work with within a rotation, it all helps build a team that's fighting for one purpose. And I think as you look at the environment that we could fight in, being able to establish teams quickly with a common purpose will enable commanders to be able to give direction, and everybody understands why we're doing what we're doing.
All right, just want to thank each one of you today for your time. This has been beneficial to really hopefully help young captains and majors learn and grow and think about what's next. So thanks for your time today, and look forward to continued dialogue and discussion on these topics.